This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to ILoveBlackPeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.
And welcome to another edition of I Love Black People. We've been blessed to have an amazing brother who I've known for years. Actually, my fraternity brother, just an amazing brother of achievement, dynamic. You know, I could introduce him, but I would not give him the proper justice, and justice probably is the topic of the day anyway. My good brother Perry Paylor. Welcome to I Love Black People, and thank you for joining us.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Brother Sinclair Skinner, and I Love Black People for giving me the opportunity to come join y'all this evening. I'm just excited to be here. It's great to be here with you.
Well, look, introduce yourself. Like I said, Noob, I want them to know who you are, what you're doing. You got some very exciting things going on right now in this moment. There's an election cycle. Please, let them know about you, because I think a lot of times people talk about what they know, but I want these folks to know that you care. So tell them about you, your background, and let's get into some of these serious issues that are happening in our community.
All right. Well, once again, thank you. So, look, I'm Perry Paylor, and I'm a candidate for Montgomery County State's Attorney, raised in Silver Spring, Maryland, in Montgomery County. Graduated from the public schools, Paint Branch High School, and was blessed to graduate from not just one, but two HBCUs. Graduated from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, and then North Carolina Central School of Law in Durham, North Carolina. Came back to Maryland where I began practicing law in 1996. I think we both have afros, hot top fades. Started my career and then joined the state's attorney's office in Prince George's County. Was a line attorney for about 5 years. That means a trial attorney. I started out in misdemeanor court and advanced all the way to narcotics, gang violence, and homicide. I was handling homicide cases. Then I went into private practice in 2003, and I represented Prince George's County as a contractor in legal deals. I did real estate development, economic development for the county. I was bond counsel, so we issued public debt into development projects. The largest project you're probably familiar with is National Harbor. I was one of about 100 lawyers on that deal, but it was really great. And one of the things that it showed me how you can make change with the investment of public dollars into certain deals. But one of the things I took away from the National Harbor project was to turn that into a tourist area. So that attracted people to come, but it's in the neighborhood known as Oxon Hill. I don't know to what extent it benefited the local residents, right? But it was aimed towards being a tourist area. Now you fast forward, I also had the opportunity to work on the Suitland Manor project, where that was a revitalization project. The Census Bureau is out there. And one of the things is that traditionally Suitland Manor was a challenged neighborhood, crime, a lot of stuff going over there. So the county invested public dollars, but revised and revamped the affordable housing with the eye on making it a place where Census Bureau employees would want to live, but also just to improve the quality for the residents that were already existing in Suitland. So that was just an example of how you turn public dollars and improve communities and improve the neighborhood. And that's kind of like where I came up with my theory of using public dollars and economic development as a tool to fight crime. Because there's no better tool to fight crime than a job and a career.
No, you're giving us very sophisticated stuff, and I think that's important. That stuff very sophisticated. And you gave us I'm just knowing that you very three-dimensional, very deep. Now let's talk about them shooting us in Buffalo, though. Now listen, let's
Right.
talk about this gun violence. Now I'm not trying to throw you out. I know you got
No.
your thing, but this right here, we got to talk about it. And I know this is near and dear to your heart, us being harmed by these racists. But in general, what is your thought about this gun violence?
First of all, let's talk about Buffalo and specifically. And we know now that the evidence is coming out that this is a hate crime targeted at Black folks. And we just can't stand for it anymore. I mean, we have done everything from taking a knee at a football game to having a night praying to singing. We've done everything to stop being a target of hate crimes, racially motivated hate crimes, where more often than not, we are the victims of gun violence, and we can't take it anymore. And so it's been this trend. We've been the subject of mass shootings over and over through the years. Our public schools have sadly come under attack, all as a result of this gun violence. We have to stand up as a nation and say we can't take it anymore. We need real gun laws. For the past 2 years in Maryland, I had the opportunity to work on the ghost gun ban. For those who might not be familiar, ghost gun, that's the nickname. It's privately manufactured firearms. And these are guns that they're sent in the mail, partially manufactured, where you could assemble them at home, or they're created through a 3D printer. But either way, they're not marked with serial numbers. So persons that can't legally purchase a gun can get these guns that can't be traced, hence the name ghost guns. And so I worked on some legislation, had the opportunity to provide written support and testimony in support of the serialization of ghost guns. So that's just one step. But we got to take real action as it relates to
I don't mean
protecting ourselves from gun violence.
I'm interrupting you. This ghost gun thing. Now, who are the manufacturers? Can't we just get to the people who are making them and either get them to stop making them, or how does that work?
Well, see, here's the thing. You have to understand what the definition of a firearm is: an assembled piece that can discharge a bullet, right? So what these manufacturers did is by selling them in pieces, they are circumventing the current definition of firearm. So the most common one is the polymer 80, where it's sent partially complete, but by not assembling the pieces, they are not technically delivering an operable firearm. And so you get it, then you can assemble the pieces. Now you have a working gun. But what arrives at your house does not meet the requirement of a firearm. So that goes back to Congress changing the laws as to how we can define a firearm. But
how do we sign? I'm sorry, say that again, because I think you kind of cut off. How do you define in general a firearm?
Well, it's the piece that can propel a bullet, right? And so because what they do is they sell it in pieces prior to it being assembled. It doesn't meet the standard of being a firearm. So when you open that box, now you put it together almost like Legos, right? Then it becomes an operable firearm. And that's how they've been able to circumvent. And those pieces, since they don't meet the definition of a firearm, they haven't been required to carry a serial number. And so what we did in Maryland is, if someone has bought the pieces separately and assembles them, now they are required to go to the state police. They will be in January of 2023 to go to the state police, and have their weapons serialized. And if they don't do that and they're caught with a ghost gun, there's criminal sanctions associated with that. So that's just one step to move us forward.
And I'm going down a rabbit hole. My background in engineering.
Right.
All manufactured items at some point need to be assembled, unless you're like pressing them, minting them. So even the typical gun that we know today, made out of steel or whatnot, literally at some phase is in pieces that are then brought together as a gun.
Right.
What is governing that space? Wouldn't that just, if it's polymer or if it's made of steel, titanium, vibranium, whatever it is, would there be a need, or could you apply current
Well, that's the
rules or
thing.
whatever?
We need to change the federal law because it's how it's defined now. So that's how they've been able to ship it through the stream of commerce, because until it's assembled, it cannot propel, so it's not designated as a firearm. So you're not shipping it right. And then that's one way. Another way that 3D, I mean, that ghost guns are manufactured is through 3D printers. So you and I can go purchase a 3D printer in our home, and you get the mold and you pour in the materials, and then it's like almost being in the oven or in a microwave. It takes you about 3 to 4 hours, sometimes up to 8 hours, and you can produce a 3D printed handgun. And those guns are not serialized either. So these are the things that in Maryland, with the ghost gun ban, we require that all the handguns be serialized, and you're subject to a 3-year period of incarceration. So that's just one step. And the reason why that's so important is because Maryland has laws where those people that are convicted of certain crimes, certain violent offenses, and sometimes certain drug distribution offenses, that you are no longer eligible to legally purchase a firearm. Domestic related violence, things like that. There's an entire list. And once you're convicted of one of those crimes, you become prohibited from, and you're placed on a list. And so what we see is that those persons who cannot legally possess a firearm will then go to these different streams of commerce to get unserialized firearms that we call ghost guns.
Wow. Okay. That was some deep stuff. I mean, that was really, really, really helpful on that.
Yeah.
Now, this overall hate crime, what are your thoughts and with the trends? And we've been here 400 years. I don't think we got to go back that far to even see some of the horrible things. We can go back just maybe 400 minutes, 400 hours, 400 seconds. Right. Talk about what you see in that space.
Well, one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that America is changing. You think back to when we were in high school. I know we're around the same age. America's becoming a browner place, right? And there are certain segments where there's been more tolerance. And so what you see is a fear of replacement. If you listen to some of this conservative talk radio, what they are spewing, the hate that they are spewing, is that there's a fear among certain corners and pockets that white folks are being replaced. And that's their dog whistle, that's their buzzword, that we will not. If you remember in Charlottesville, that chant, Jews will not replace us. That was, a direct anti-Semitic chant that we, escalated and was a call to violence. And when we see that more and more as people, traditionally disenfranchised people, are starting to exert political power, right? And so we see that we're taking places in Congress, federal, state, and local elections have consequences. You're seeing more participation. And look, even all the way to the latest Supreme Court justice, right? That's something that we've never seen before. And so as the channels and the opportunity to take power has expanded, some people resent that, and you're starting to see others that will wave the flames of hate to inspire violence. And we got to stand firm against that. And that's what was going on in Buffalo. We got to make sure that we stand firm and hold our leaders accountable. And you got to call it what it is. We call it a hate crime. And you got to have local prosecutors that prosecute these hate crimes, and local prosecutors and your U.S. Attorney's Office. They have to prosecute these hate crimes when they occur.
Well, it seems like they can prosecute them because for some reason these armed racists can be taken in and be apprehended without being shot. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Like, they can prosecute these race crimes because they don't shoot unarmed Europeans or white folks. But they sure, a black person running away will get shot. And literally, this guy killed a number of people. Like we said before, one's too many. but he was literally apprehended, and he didn't even have no like hickeys or bruises on him. When I saw him, I was like, man, this guy
Yeah.
looks like he was freshly shaved.
He's
Like,
going to the prom, huh?
like yeah, he looked like he's going prom too. Like, man, they gotta do better. Like,
Yeah.
when I see how the treatment, you know, again, I don't want to take you too far into the law enforcement part of it, but I do think on the way people see and view how this behavior is, and how it seems like there's certain people get a pass.
Sure.
And, you know, again, when black people are killed by black folks, white folks, anybody, we need accountability. But it does seem like when we get killed, the people get hard to get real justice served. And it seems like, and again, if it's true or not, that's I think the impression so many people have, and people take matters in their own hands. I mean, literally, folks, you know, with conceal and carry. I live in DC. I exercise all my rights. I mean, I'm not here on the radio talking about them all, but I'm clear, like, I'm not waiting for somebody to save my wife or myself. You know, how do we deal with and I think the point you made was so sound about, especially people feeling disenfranchised, saying that they're going to be replaced. You know, at the end of the day, the people who are hiring folks, the people who train and pay these folks are probably white folks. Like, so even if it's an immigrant, most immigrants don't hire themselves, they don't train themselves, and they don't pay themselves. It's a larger system that is employing these folks at cheaper wages. What, I mean, with the growing inflation, you know, I think you might have hit something like, as people, and I think you kind of tied it to economics, but I think as people become, you know, more disenfranchised economically, they may resort to more of the violence that we've already seen to find scapegoats for a life that's already, you know, they're frustrated with.
Yeah, well, let's go to the beginning. And one of the things that we have to talk about, it has always been, and I use this phrase a lot, Sinclair, it has always been culturally legitimate to tag black men as more violent, more aggressive, and therefore it becomes culturally legitimate with police sometimes who suffer from implicit bias, right? That subject us to more violence when it comes to our the investigative stops, searches and seizures, and ultimately during the arrest. And so that's why you have to have a local prosecutor that is not afraid to stand up to police when their actions rise to the level of criminal culpability. And I want to tell you, just last week, I serve as deputy state's attorney in Prince George's County. I work for Aisha, and we prosecuted a police officer. Young African-American male was pulled over because of a registration. Pulled over, taken out of his car, handcuffed. Things got tense, words were exchanged, but this gentleman's hands were handcuffed behind his back. He was standing up. Next thing you know, he slammed on his neck by the police officer, and he was a quadriplegic. So we ended up prosecuting this police officer for assault, misconduct, things like that, and the officer was found guilty on every count. So you need to have your local prosecutors have a passion for the people that they serve and not be afraid to hold police accountable. And that's something that I plan on doing once elected as Montgomery County State's Attorney. And I think you touched on a lot of things. When we see these people begin to go off into their own tribes when there's economic stress, right? So what we're seeing now is that with inflation and we're still feeling some of the heat of the hate from the last president that was spewed from the White House for 4 years. And that is now manifesting in the violence against peaceful people here in the United States. And it's going to take us to stand up together and make sure that we continue to voice our concerns. That's one thing, man. The one thing about the conservatives and the Republicans, when they get an issue, you know, they don't rest on it. Whether it's a victory or a defeat, they keep going. I mean, think about it. They've been going after Roe v. Wade since you and I were It was the early 70s. We were young kids, and they never relented. And look, Roe v. Wade, right? But if you remember during Amy Coney Barrett's hearing, the second question was Brown versus Board. So we grew up thinking Brown versus Board was the law of the land, 1954, and we all think that, that's never going to change. And so I was struck when I know they always go after Roe versus Wade, but when they ask her, I was like, why are they asking about Brown versus Board? Okay, so that's on somebody's agenda. We're on somebody's menu, and we don't even know it. So we need voices like you. We need to have media that always raises and addresses these issues. Because trust me, we need to be ready to fight. Because if they want to change Roe versus Wade, I believe Brown versus Board is next. And we got to make sure that we are up for the fight. And that's why these elections, whether it's your local, state, or federal elections, we got to make sure we have a Congress, both, House of Representatives and a Senate that are prepared to fight. Think about it, Sinclair, you and I grew up with the Voting Rights Act. Never thought it would be gutted. So they gutted the Voting Rights Act. They put Roe versus Wade on the table, and Brown versus Board. I am convinced that's going to be next. And we got to have our people and our elected officials ready to stand firm and fight these things. And we got to go back and fix the Voting Rights Act.
Go along a line of how we can be a part of the solution. So I think you kind of strung together the relevance and importance of our political engagement. I think many people have gotten a little disenchanted, especially with the Democratic Party and its impotence, even having the House, the Senate, and the executive, and not being able to affect any type of activities that give us what we're looking for as far as an agenda, and a number of excuses. But we've seen other communities get executive orders very specifically tailored to their communities, while we get told that we need to wait, or we got to be, when they talk about an issue facing Black people, we got to say people of color. But when other constituents are dealt with, they speak to a specific religion, specific ethnic group, specific status. When it comes to Black people, it gets to be melting pot America again, which is, again, we have a very unique history in America. Like, it's not even like, it's like of all the groups that got problems, we got like hundreds of, years of problems. And I think some people are getting to the point where they feel frustrated with the system and don't want to participate beyond the rhetoric and debates on social media. And I think some of the points you just made, where there is a connection locally with prosecutors and how justice is addressed, and then even talking about on a higher level, a federal level, not say higher, on another level, on a federal level, where you brought up, and this was so brilliant, Fad, this is on everything. You said, okay, Roe v. Wade, now you think that whatever you think about abortion, or maybe that's you're past the age of having babies, or you're not concerned about it, or whatever. Listen, if they go for that, and you even gave an example of a question that might have seemed, innocuous or not like relevant, and now you see how there's an agenda out there, like you said, that we may not know about. And I think when you say that, you speak to a level of political sophistication that speaks to more than an election day. And we need to, what's the day of y'all's election?
The Maryland primary is July 19th.
Yeah. So July 19th is a day, but as you've shown with your background, is that election day is one day, but your political agenda is something you got to take up every day. Again, the way you pulled together how all these things are related is brilliant. Is that we don't have to be victims. We have the power to advocate for the things that interest us. And that's if the person in office you like or don't like, because sometimes people think hating or loving somebody is a political strategy. I think it's more about what you said, where you literally have to be engaged, you have to be active, and you can't allow other folks who don't have your interest to advance their agenda while you stand by silently. And that's between elections, on election day. And I think, again, talking about, at the level of the county, we don't normally hear that. We always hear about people talking about the U.S. Congress. We talk about the U.S. president. But I think where the rubber hits the road is in positions like what you are pursuing.
Right.
And there's people who are literally, like you said, you talked about the Republicans, who don't let their issues rest. They literally every day wake up and hold themselves. And I think without you, Brother Perry. So, definitely,
And yeah,
thanks for the love and thanks for your seriousness and the things you're doing. I do remember the good old days of good times. So
you right about
again,
that.
humbly, thank you, Brother
Yeah,
Perry.
thank you,
And
man. And please let me come back, man. And I'm waiting to get on the bus. When you get it wrapped up, I'm gonna be there. We're gonna
This is I
roll
Love
through the
Black
area
People
with
Radio
it.
on
all right, humbly,
46,
then we'll hold
Sirius
you down. All right,
XM,
on the
channel
job.
141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to ILoveBlackPeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.